welcome to Asliga.com. Today I want to show you around the My Team tool a little bit. I want to try and keep this short. But basically I just want to show you a few of the things, a few of the features of the My Team tool that can really help you improve your fantasy squad and get higher scores week to week, help you get rid of the players who are dead weight, who aren't pulling their weight, and hopefully win your league. That's the goal, I suppose. So basically, when you look at your Premier League team at the end of the week, you'll see a bunch of numbers, and if you're lucky, you'll see a star next to that player's name to let you know that that player played really well, and they're in the dream team. But that's all you see. Now, I live in Australia, so the games are on in the middle of the night here, and I don't get to watch all 10 games. So inevitably, there's going to be players who I don't really know how they're going any more than that score I see at the end of the week. And the My Team tool here helps me see through that. So basically, we can see all our players, they're color-coded by position, who they play for, their market price. Then what we've got here is the fantasy returns column. Now, we class a fantasy return as a goal or an assist for any player, a clean sheet for a defender or a goalkeeper, or a penalty save for a goalkeeper. We don't count clean sheets as a fantasy return for midfielders because that's just not why we purchase them. So very quickly, you got a quick indication of whether your players are bringing home the bacon or not. And you can see here that Diego Costa has brought home 5 fantasy returns out of 6 games. Excellent return. Fabregas up there, 4 out of 6. You know, you can see all the stats there. So that's the first indication of how our players are performing week in, week out. Secondly, we have the ALI, or our Asliga index score. Now, basically, this is a rating that we have put together that measures how much fantasy-relevant involvement our players are having week in, week out. And we score that based on how that relates to, how that particular action relates to potential fantasy points. For instance, a defender gets 6 points for a goal, and a forward only gets 4 points for a goal. So does it not follow then that if a defender takes a shot at goal, that is more valuable to you than if a forward takes a shot at goal, because there is a higher chance of points return? So we factored all that into the ALI. And then you can see, I mean, how often do you see a player come out of nowhere, get 15 points in a game week, and then the next week everyone's bringing him in? You know, but often that player, you know, he may have scored 2 goals, but he might have only had 2 shots in the last 4 weeks, and you haven't been watching him, so how do you know? You're not going to go, I mean, most people don't go looking at all their stats, you know, for the past 4 weeks. So the ALI gives you an indication of whether they're involved, whether they're getting in key passes, crosses, you know, if they're touching it in the final third, if they're keeping clean sheets, all those sorts of things. Now, the ALI is not the be-all and end-all. You don't just want players with high ALIs because sometimes players just don't convert those chances, but as an indication, it can give you an idea of form. If a player's points are going down week to week and you see that ALI going down as well, well, then maybe they've changed position. Maybe they're playing deeper now. All those sorts of things. It's to help you see through your team, really. And then down the bottom here, we've got a summary of you know, all our ALIs put together. 87.9 is pretty good. The really good teams are up around the 115, 120 mark. So that is something to keep an eye on. Now, then we've got the points per game column and the RWP column. Now, the other thing that My Team tool helps you do is up here we've got a weekly target. That is my past score that I've set, and I'm saying to the Asliga tool that this is the minimum amount of points I want to score each week. This is how many points I think I need to score to win my league. And then what it does, based on the price of your players, well, the market price of your players, I should say, the My Team tool then works out how many points each player needs to score based on their price for you to achieve that target. And then that gives you an indication, another indication of whether they're pulling their weight, whether that player is worth having in your team. And you can see the result here in the target column. Now, I'm just going to change this to the last 4 game weeks just to get a more recent indication of form. So I've just changed that from 3 to 6, and you can see this changes now. At the moment, you know, if this was my team for the last 4 weeks, it would have got me 66.4 points per game, which is good. I would have had Diego Costa as captain. But I can see straight away that Ramsey is a problem. There's a few problems. First of all, he's only brought me 1 fantasy return out of 4 game weeks. Second of all, he's 4.1 points below his required weekly points on average. So he's injured now anyway, right? But that would be the first player that I would think about getting rid of. And then, you know, there's so much more information you can get out of this. If I'm just going to set this to last game week. So I've set that 6 to 6. Now this is just showing me last week. Now I wouldn't have had a great week last week if this was my team. But what I can do is I can say, all right, now Fabregas, look, he didn't get a fantasy return. His ALI was 12.9, so he was involved, okay? How involved was he? Well, let me take a look. You can click on any player's name on Asliga and then get a whole range of information. Now, this is set over the whole season. I'm just going to change that to last game week. Now, I can see last game week he had an ALI of 12.9. He had 2 shots at goal. He had put in 8 crosses. 2 of them were accurate. He still put in 2 key passes, so he was still creating chances. Last week, he made 144 passes. 144 passes with 45 in the final third. So Fabregas, you know, even though he didn't get any points, I know he's involved. And these are the kinds of things that you want to look for. On the flip side, if Fabregas had got, you know, 15 points last week, but I saw that he hardly touched the ball, then that's an indication that maybe that's not going to happen every week. Another cool thing about the My Team tool and basically the site in general is that if you're scouting a player, let's say I'm interested in bringing in Tadic. He's not in my team. I'm going to click on him and I'll see all his information just like I did Fabregas a second ago. I have this tab down here which is squad, and basically all that does is compare Tadic to the other players in my team in that same position. So I can see here that Tadic, you know, it's just a quick indication, a quick overview. We've got price, ALI, fantasy returns, and points. So it doesn't go into too much depth, but I can see here he got 1 fantasy return in game week 6 where none of the others got any. He would have had the second highest ALI out of all my players, and so on and so forth. To just go back to Ramsey for a second, I just want to take a look at his ALI and see if that has dropped over the past few weeks, because I just noticed it was only 5.9 last week. So look, we can see here, all right, Ramsey, look at his involvement going down week to week. In game week 3, 19.1, then 12.3, 7.1, 5.9. So that gives me an indication of his form as well. I can see there's a problem here. Here is someone that I need to get out of my team. If he wasn't already injured, then he'd be on his way out. So that's just a quick indication. You know, when you're looking at other areas of the site, like the My Statistics tool or the Club Center or the comparisons or whatever, you can pin any player you want, and they will be here waiting for you when you come back to the My Team tool, so you can, you know, put them into your team if you want to. You've got the notes function up here, so if you're, you know, searching for players and you want to remember something, maybe a team's got a double game week coming up, you can put stuff into there to help you. But this is really here to help you manage your team and manage it better. So hope that gives you a good idea of what this can do. And, you know, I hope you use Asliga and it helps you improve your team. If you've got any comments, feedback, or suggestions, please hit us up. But yeah, thanks a lot for watching and good luck next game week.